Good afternoon, everyone. My name's Scott Tyson. I am the Global Sales Manager and Head of Sales for Inbay, based here in London. And I want to welcome everyone to the second episode of the webinar series that we're calling MSP Trailblazers. So I want to welcome all the Inbay and Storagecraft partners, as well as everyone else that's joined the webinar today. Just a reminder of the format of today's webinar. We're going to run through 30, 45 minutes, have a number of questions to run through with our guest, who's going to give us a fantastic insight as to how he grew his business into the success it is today, what the experiences and lessons he's had throughout the years, and also how he sees the business and market in 2017 and beyond. So we want this to be a fairly interactive and an open conversation with the attendees, as well as myself and our guest Eric. So if you've got any questions, please put them in the box on the right hand side, and I can ask those questions both during and at the end of the session. So that being the case, I as I said, want to welcome today's guest, who is Eric Rockwell. Eric's the president and co-founder of CentrexIT. CentrexIT are a multi-award-winning service provider based in San Diego in California. Eric, welcome to the webinar. Thanks for joining us, and I'm sure it's a lovely sunny day there in California.
It sure is. It's actually very rarely not.
Indeed. We're not jealous whatsoever, mate. And as I said, thanks very much for joining us. I do appreciate it, and I'm sure the number of attendees are going to get a hell of a lot out of the next half an hour or 45 minutes of the webinar. But so to kick things off, if you don't mind, do you mind just giving us an overview of the origins of CentrexIT, how you began, what are the services you offered, the vital statistics of the company in the early days, and what got you into this market?
My partner and I started this company. It'll be 14 years, 9 months, and 29 days ago, as of today. So we're almost 15 years old, and we started this company. Literally, I was going to school at a university in San Diego, and he was working for an ISP and decided that he wanted to start doing some IT stuff on his own. And one day we just landed, we started working on some clients together and really started getting into healthcare. And one day we just landed a large 7-location client that was really putting in their first network. Everything was Unix based at the time, and they were moving everything over to Windows. And they literally wrote us a check for 60 grand for the project, and we started the company.
Fantastic. And I guess at that time it was one of those things was, what do we do now?
It really was. I mean, it was just him and I, but from literally day one, I had this vision of how inefficient everything was, having servers all over the place. And I had this vision of moving everything into a central data center and centralizing as much as we possibly could, everything from voice and data to applications. And we really started building out our first data center back in 2003 and started hosting clients out of our office, and then moved them into a real data center in 2004. But we've really seen that vision through, and now have a large private cloud where we host over 1,000 VMs for our clients, everything from servers to voice infrastructure, and some clients that are getting into VDI, and now we have data centers in multiple states, and it's all running on enterprise grade gear. So it's really cool to see that grow up the way that it has.
Absolutely. From small acorns, massive oak trees, of course. But so in regards to back in those 15 years ago, and so many days, so many hours, so many times, what were the expectations of the service initially, Eric? Did you go out and pitch a whole host of stuff, or were you very specific in what did you want to pitch and how you took the company forward from those early days?
Well, in the early days, we just kind of asked what they needed and said, yep, we can do that. But after doing that about 20 or 30 times, I started realizing that the efficiencies weren't working in our favor, and we needed to get better controls around what we were doing with our clients. We needed to start doing more proactive work, figuring out what was causing the noise and what we could do to prevent the noise from coming back the next time, and reporting all that information back to our clients so they could help us bring the noise down also, and we could help measure where any pain was coming from them. And that just kind of led into taking that just higher level and higher level until back in 2004, I started doing CIO meetings with our larger clients and started doing some basic budgeting and planning, and really just trying to get more proactive. And I realized that all of our clients needed that. And by 2006, we were doing CIO meetings for all of our clients, all of our managed clients. And by 2007, we didn't have anyone on break fix anymore. Everyone was 100% reoccurring revenue agreements, and we stopped doing projects and taking on any client that wasn't in our MSP package. And we've just been growing and maturing that model. And now I've got 3 different vCIOs and 5 different virtual IT managers. We're hiring a 6th right now. And people in our NOC, people in our SOC, people in our help desk, almost 15 people on that team now. So it's really growing up. And they're still following just a much more mature version of that same basic framework that we discovered a little more than 10 years ago.
Fantastic. Actually, you touched on a really relevant industry title, I guess, if you will, that we're seeing more and more. And I guess it's pretty well known that you know the US MSP market's a little bit more mature than other markets, you know, certainly here in Europe and also back in Australia and so forth. But the terminology vCIO is starting to become very, very popular these days, and I guess it's a title that's come over from the US and so forth. But on that, could you give us a bit of an understanding of how your organization uses the staff member, the vCIO within your organization? I guess from your perspective and an industry perspective, what's the terminology, what it does for you, and what it does for your company as well as your customers?
Yeah, so that is a critical role for us, because what we realized was every one of our clients needed somebody in that executive leadership position for technology, but none of them had it. So that meant that they were either going to hire that position, and somebody else was going to start driving the ship, or we had to drive the ship. And if we were going to drive the ship, that means that we needed an executive level person that understood business, probably had a business degree, and could take the reins, understand what the business plan was, and create a technology plan that was aligned with the business plan. So we were all going in the same direction. We needed to do budgeting at a fairly in-depth level so that we had some command and control over the expenses, and our clients didn't feel like we were nickel and diming them, and they didn't feel like we were throwing expensive solutions at them out of nowhere that they didn't plan for. We started getting all that stuff into budgets and putting process around that so that our clients know and expect what to plan for, and we're planning together. They're not doing their own planning. We're not doing our own planning. It's an aligned plan. So that vCIO does annual strategic planning with all of their clients, annual budgeting with all of their clients, and also runs and chairs an IT steering committee meeting that meets quarterly. And the IT steering committee is the vCIO, the VITEM from our team, and at least one C-level executive, and any manager or department head who has a team that relies on technology, or any system owner like who's ever accountable for the financial system or the ERP system or whatever the primary business application is.
Sure.
So that IT steering committee is able to meet about changes in the plan, get updates on the plan, where we're at on initiatives. Are we green, yellow, red? We can reprioritize things together, maintain alignment, and make sure that everybody has a voice at the table and gets their voice heard when we're talking about IT. And that really helps prevent them from going off and doing their own rogue thing. We call that shadow IT. And we're trying to fight shadow IT by gaining alignment with that steering committee and making sure that everybody has a seat at the table and gets to have their voice heard.
Fantastic. Fantastic. And has the role of vCIO changed over the 2-3 years or whatever it's been around? Has that changed? Has it got more senior? Has it got more junior, in fact?
Well, for us, it's matured a lot. Originally I was doing all of the vCIO work, and now I've got, real CIOs that came out of the mid-market. One of my vCIOs used to be the CIO of a 5,000 employee pharmaceutical company. And we've really taken a mature process and scaled it down to small businesses. So there are some things that we don't need to do just because it doesn't scale down, but a lot of the meat from that process that Fortune 1000 companies use in the United States, we're doing that same thing just on a smaller scale with our small business clients. But it's producing and delivering the same results that any large company would need from a CIO.
Fantastic. And do you see the role of a vCIO within your organisation? Do you see you bringing more and more in as the company grows? Are they that kind of staff member that you need to augment and continue to grow that team?
Yeah, I think that as the technology landscape changes, their role is going to change. And I think one of the biggest changes in the near future is we're going to be hiring virtual chief information security officers, so a vCISO, that's going to report to the vCIO. And there's going to be a security component that they're going to have to learn. And their job is going to be to take all the heavy security stuff the vCISO was saying and learn how to align that with the business plan so the security doesn't get in the way of accomplishing the results of the business plan. And that's going to be a new challenge.
It seems like an interesting challenge. In fact, one of the things I was going to ask you too, how is having that vCIO in that role been accepted by your customers? So obviously they're giving up a little bit of the IT decision making or recommendation part of it. Are they welcoming that vCIO into their organisations, or was there initially some kickback, but then it's all of a sudden come into being accepted? How has that gone with your customers?
Oh no, they love it because none of our clients are in the IT business. That's why they hired us. They wanted to get out of the IT business. So having a real executive sitting at the table, helping them doing executive level strategic planning and making budgetary decisions, it's welcoming. They love it. They didn't know how to do it. They love having someone who's qualified make those decisions for them. Fantastic.
Great insight into that side of the business and how you've brought a particular area of the business and grown that part, and that's helped the company grow. So from me, as you continue to grow, are you finding any more challenges within the business that you need to look at or augment?
Yeah, I was just mentioning how we really solved the recruiting challenge for us by using a LinkedIn, the third-party tool called the LinkedIn Recruiter. And it allows our service manager who does most of the hiring to type in keywords like he wants to see anyone in San Diego or Los Angeles, for example, who has Cisco, Microsoft, and VMware certifications, who has worked for an MSP for at least 5 years. And hundreds of candidates will show up. And just by messaging them and displaying, sending them a link to a little video about our company culture and what we're trying to do, how we're trying to change the technology market, we've had so many qualified candidates want to join our team. And actually 2 weeks ago, we had someone join our team that had a job offer from Microsoft, and he turned down Microsoft to work for our team, to join our team, because he thought our culture was that much better.
So I'll jump in with a few questions if you don't mind while we're waiting for him to get.
Go for it.
Okay, so I suppose one of the questions, one of the challenges people have here on this side of the ocean is it's very much around sort of is building pipeline, and obviously this is something that you've done very, very well. You have a very healthy business. So what do you do to build your pipeline?
Yeah, so the pipeline comes from 4 main channels and then a few other channels, but I've got a full team of inside salespeople that manage lists that we buy from data.com of C-level executives in organizations between 25 and 500 employees. And all they do every day is attempt to make 100 calls and have 10 conversations with C-level executives about IT. And through those 10 conversations a day, they're each trying to set about 20 first-time appointments a month, and a percentage of those will end up closing that month. And the ones that don't close, we keep on a list that we call the Warm 250, and we continually follow up with them until it's the right time to move forward. So we're constantly farming and managing these lists. And while we're doing that, we're also doing some marketing activities online. We do a lot of SEO. And I found that in our market and other markets from the peer groups that we're in, the term IT support produces better results than any other AdWord or keyword. So we've got a full-time marketing firm that's managing our SEO campaigns that we get leads from. And then we get a lot of referrals from existing clients, and those referrals carry a much higher weight than a cold lead does. And those usually go through the sales process much faster because we've already established pain, we've already established trust, and they already know from that referral that we can get the job done. And then the other one is managing centers of influence in the community. And this is something that my team and I do a lot of. And we call them COIs, centers of influence. These are people that work with your clients and our clients. And they're healthcare bankers or CFOs or CPAs, for example, or they're attorneys, but they're working with other businesses, and they have their own book of business, and once a month or once a quarter, we'll get together. I'll show them my client list and say, is there anyone on my client list that you would like an introduction to? And they'll do the same thing. I'll show them my list of prospects and say, hey, are there all of my prospects, is there anyone here that you know that you could make a warm intro to? And then vice versa. Is there anyone on my client list you would like a warm intro to? So by managing these COIs in the community, we're generating a lot more warm referrals than just the cold leads that we're calling on. And all in all, that's been producing the result of selling and onboarding an average of 2 clients a month, around 6.5K, some larger, some smaller. And we're cranking that up, from an average of 15K a month in MRR, new MRR to 20K a month in new MRR.
Wow. That's an excellent tip. And I see we've a question in here from Chris straight away saying, what do you do to build that level of trust with your COI partners?
Well, they have to trust that we can do the job. And most of the time, those COIs already work with our clients. So let's say a banker, he's already the banker for 5 of our clients, and then this other banker is the banker for 3 of our clients, and this banker is the banker for 10 of our clients. So they're already working with our clients, and they've already gotten feedback that we're doing a great job. So there's a very high level of trust going into the relationship. Right. It's very hard to start a relationship with a cold COI unless you have that transfer of trust. But if you guys all have clients, and I'm sure everybody on the call has clients, I've got good news. They probably all have bankers, and they probably all have CPAs, and most of them probably have business attorneys, corporate attorneys. So if you do a little work and put some discipline around it, you can find COIs that you can meet with, and after about a year of doing this, it starts producing measurable results on a regular basis. And by the way, when you get together with them, you can do it at happy hour. So you get together, you have some drinks together, and if nothing else, you get a beer out of it.
Yeah. Well, no, it sounds like you get a lot more than a beer out of it, I think. Okay, just
you do. But worst case scenario, you get a beer.
Yes. You mentioned earlier about that, this process that it's leading to getting 2 clients a month, and it's always great to get in new clients. Did you find at a point in your business where you have to start divesting of clients, where you start sort of culling the unprofitable ones? Is that something you do in the organization?
Oh yeah, absolutely. But we go through a process to measure that, and what we're taking a look at is for all of our clients, for every dollar that a client pays us, there's some level of sense that should go into every different delivery area. So just for an example, for every dollar that we get from a client, about 28 cents should go into the help desk. So we can measure how much time is going into all those different delivery areas. And if a client is overutilizing the vCIO or the VITEM or the help desk, we look into why that is. And in some cases, we just need to uplift them. And in other cases, we found that we actually need to staff a resource at a lower hourly rate than a project rate for a set number of days per week, because they're just growing so rapidly. There's a lot of changes. They're not necessarily experiencing pain, but there's just a lot of stuff to do. So by managing where the time is going and having some command around that, we're able to get paid for the time that we need to be spending with our clients. And at this point, we've really shed all the clients that are just noisy, not able to pay for changes, not making the right changes. We've really gotten rid of those over time. For every 10K a month client we would bring in, we would get rid of a $1,500 a month client that just wasn't budgeting for technology the way that we wanted them to, and that just wasn't a good partnership.
Okay. I want to go back to something you referenced earlier, which I think is interesting. Is you mentioned peer groups. So can I ask if you're a member of a peer group, and if so, what value do you get out of it?
I am. I was in a peer group called HTG for a long time, I think 7 or 8 years. I moved over to another peer group about 3.5 or 4 years ago called the Winner's Circle. And that's Gary Pica's private peer group. There's only about 50 MSPs in that peer group. But I get a lot of value out of it because I'm with 10 other executives running similar companies, and we can bounce ideas off of each other. We look at the same operational metrics and the same financial metrics, and we're all driving to the same efficiency standards and looking at our businesses the same way. It just makes it a lot easier to mature your business when you have other qualified executives that are helping you do it.
Okay. I'm just conscious of time. So I suppose one of the things that if you had to sort of, obviously you've built a hugely successful business in a relatively short period of time. If you had to sort of name the 3 things that contributed to your success, what would they be?
Well, number one, early on, even though we had no idea what we were doing from a business standpoint, we understood culture. We didn't know what culture was, but we tried to build an amazing culture where we would want to work. And I just had this simple philosophy of only hiring people that I'd want to go to the bar and hang out with. And if I couldn't stand sitting at the bar having a beer with a guy for an hour, then our clients wouldn't want to talk to them and I wouldn't want to hire them. And that simple philosophy of would I want to have a beer with this person really helped me build this rock star team. And today, most of those guys are still on the team. 17% of my team has been on the team for more than a decade. So we're really trying to grow and attract these lifers and create the type of culture that IT people thrive in. And that's one of the reasons we have to keep growing. If we don't keep growing, then we don't have upward mobility for our team members. And if they can't grow and they're good, they're going to go elsewhere to grow, and we don't want that. Mm-hmm. So number one was building and investing in company culture. It's something that I don't see a lot in the MSP community. It's very rare, but it's highly effective. Number two is hiring a business coach. I did that about 6 or 7 years ago.
Okay.
And he was a seasoned CEO who really helped us fill in the rest of the gaps, trained us on leadership and how to be real executives. And during the time that we've worked with him, we grew from $1.5 million in revenue to this calendar year, we're going to be doing 11 or 12 million in revenue. So huge growth over the last 7 years.
Yeah. Okay. Um,
And number three,
yeah.
learning from our mistakes, admitting when we're wrong. There's still a ton of stuff that we don't know. And if we run around pretending like we know everything, then we're never going to learn. But if we really take the opportunity to learn from the mistakes and the breakdowns that we see, we have an opportunity to create a breakthrough and prevent those breakdowns from happening again in the future. And that allows us to move forward and not constantly slide backwards.
Okay. And so that's kind of the past. I guess the next thing, is where do you see, first of all, where do you see your business going? But maybe in a more general way, where do you see our industry going, and especially sort of the MSP business? Where do you see this going in a few years?
So both our business and the industry, I think there's going to be a huge shift to a focus on managed cybersecurity. Right now, we're really building up our security muscle, and we've developed our first product that we're selling to non-MSP clients. So we only sell cloud and professional services to fully managed clients. We built a managed security product based on all the same ingredients that Fortune 500 managed security service providers use, but tailored it and scaled it down to the small business, just like we did with the MSP product. And we're now delivering Fortune 500 security results at a small business price point to our client base. And on July 1, we're going to go to market and start selling these managed security packages to the broader market. And I think that we're going to see this trend continue. And the higher OML MSPs, the MSPs that are more operationally mature, they're going to do the same thing. And they're going to be marketing these managed security products to their clients, and they're going to take them to the broader market also. That's going to be a huge change in our landscape.
Okay. Do you believe that security, is it more of a threat or an opportunity?
Well, it's both. I think that it's a huge opportunity for those of us who want to take advantage of that. I mean, right now, we're getting so much interest in security, not just from our existing clients, but from prospects that we're talking to. And so, and if you were able to, let's say, get $5,000 a month from a client for managed services, you can pick up another $2,500 a month from managed security. So deals that people would only get $5,000 a month for, we're going to be getting $7,500 a month for. So it's a huge opportunity. But for the MSPs that don't focus on it, I think it's a big threat. Number one, if you're not doing VITAM and vCIO, then you're at risk of being seen as a commoditized MSP. And number two, if you're not focusing on security, then you might actually get replaced by an MSSP or an MSP that simply has a more mature offering than yours. And as MSPs, I don't think we want that to happen. We want to be in control of this, and we want to take advantage of this big opportunity that's out there, because right now it's a blue ocean and no one's really feeding in it.
Yeah. Okay.
Mistakes, admitting when we're wrong. There's still a ton of stuff that we don't know. And if we run around pretending like we know everything, then we're never going to learn. But if we really take the opportunity to learn from the mistakes and the breakdowns that we see, we have an opportunity to create a breakthrough and prevent those breakdowns from happening again in the future. And that allows us to move forward and not constantly slide backwards.
Okay. And so that's kind of the past. I guess the next thing, is where do you see, first of all, where do you see your business going? But maybe in a more general way, where do you see our industry going, and especially sort of the MSP business? Where do you see this going in a few years?
So both our business and the industry, I think there's going to be a huge shift to a focus on managed cybersecurity. Right now, we're really building up our security muscle, and we've developed our first product that we're selling to non-MSP clients. So we only sell cloud and professional services to fully managed clients. We built a managed security product based on all the same ingredients that Fortune 500 managed security service providers use, but tailored it and scaled it down to the small business, just like we did with the MSP product. And we're now delivering Fortune 500 security results at a small business price point to our client base. And on July 1, we're going to go to market and start selling these managed security packages to the broader market. And I think that we're going to see this trend continue. And the higher OML MSPs, the MSPs that are more operationally mature, they're going to do the same thing. And they're going to be marketing these managed security products to their clients, and they're going to take them to the broader market also. That's going to be a huge change in our landscape.
Okay. Do you believe that security, is it more of a threat or an opportunity?
Well, it's both. I think that it's a huge opportunity for those of us who want to take advantage of that. I mean, right now, we're getting so much interest in security, not just from our existing clients, but from prospects that we're talking to. And so, and if you were able to, let's say, get $5,000 a month from a client for managed services, you can pick up another $2,500 a month from managed security. So deals that people would only get $5,000 a month for, we're going to be getting $7,500 a month for. So it's a huge opportunity. But for the MSPs that don't focus on it, I think it's a big threat. Number one, if you're not doing VITAM and vCIO, then you're at risk of being seen as a commoditized MSP. And number two, if you're not focusing on security, then you might actually get replaced by an MSSP or an MSP that simply has a more mature offering than yours. And as MSPs, I don't think we want that to happen. We want to be in control of this, and we want to take advantage of this big opportunity that's out there, because right now it's a blue ocean and no one's really feeding in it.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I think that's
time here, approaching the hour to I don't know, wrap up things and certainly answer any questions. Again, I'll stress that if there are any questions, I know you've answered a few as I've been often online over the last 10, 15 minutes, but if there are any questions or anyone's got any relevant questions now, they can put it in the webinar box. Looking back in hindsight, Eric, I know it's a lovely thing and we can't do it, but you know, if we had our time again, if you had the 15 years again, is there anything you would have done differently? You would have done exactly the same. Is there anything that comes to mind that you'd probably change?
Well, I mean, sure, there were tons of mistakes that I made over the years and continue to make, but that's how we learn. And like I said earlier, being able to just be honest about the mistakes and really learn from them, that's what's allowed us to move forward and not slide backwards. I wouldn't change anything, because I love what I do every day, and I love being a part of this industry and community, and I'm excited about where it's going. Although, having said that, if I could go back 14 years and 9 months ago and deliver the same packages that we have now at our same level of operational maturity that we're at today, oh my God, we could have just taken over the entire market. We could have been, you know, one of the big all coverage or mind shifts. And I think we have that same opportunity today with managed security. No one has really developed a mature MSSP package for small businesses yet at a small business price point, and the ones that do are gonna just explode.
okay.
Fantastic.
Scott,
Fantastic.
Scott, can you see there's a couple of questions?
Yeah.
There's a couple of questions coming in there.
Okay, I can't see them, so if you want to ask them away, please go away, Janet.
Okay. So first of all, a few people have asked if there's going to be a recording of the webinar available, and the answer to that is yes. The next question is it's from Nathan Eric, and he says he wants to know what sort of services or value adds are included with managed security.
So in our managed security package, you're getting the time from a real chief information security officer, a vCISO, who's helping set the policy for the organization, the information security policy, getting that written down, making sure that people are trained on it. They have a security manager who's helping with some of those initiatives and driving security initiatives throughout the organization. And on top of that, instead of just having a network operations team, we have a security operations team And we're using a behavioral analysis and log aggregation tool called Alien Vault to really figure out, establish what the baseline of normal looks like in an environment, learn from that, and alert on things that actually aren't normal, report them back to us so that we can actually respond in real time to threats that might have created a breach or taken a system down unnecessarily. It's just a much higher and more proactive approach than just doing firewall management and antivirus. We're learning from the threats that really happened, learning from where they came from, and learning what we can do to better prevent them in the future. And we're also doing a lot of cybersecurity training, simulated cyber attacks, vulnerability scans and pen tests, and showing the users in the organization where they fell for these simulated attacks and why. And through that training, we're trying to really raise everyone's awareness around cybersecurity, because the users are just such a huge vulnerability, and they're the ones who keep falling for these little attacks and clicking on things and doing things they shouldn't do. By educating them on what they're doing wrong, we can change their behavior and further prevent future attacks that haven't happened yet.
Okay, great answer. Okay, so next question is, so what are Eric's thoughts on DAAS, which I presume is desktop as a service offerings, and cloud-focused desktop stroke app hosting?
I think it's definitely a great opportunity. We're doing it in our cloud today, and I think we have a few hundred today, but it's just a couple of clients. I see that growing to a few thousand VDIs in the future, but I think that there's only a certain, that is a solution that works well for a certain type of user, and as a vCIO, you have to understand what users need what equipment. So power users, executives, people that are doing different things every day on their computers, they really work better with a full laptop, a full computer. But if you're a task user and you're just doing the same 5 things in a primary business application every day, whether it's a doctor seeing patients in an EHR system, or if it's somebody on the manufacturing floor entering data or looking up data in the ERP system, whatever it is, if they're a task user, then desktop as a service is a great solution. If you try to do that for a full power user, it might do 80 or 90% of what they need, but they're going to find a way to fill that 10% elsewhere. And that's when you get shadow IT. That's when you get them putting sensitive documents in Dropbox, and that's what leads to other data breaches.
Okay. So next question, how do you recruit good salespeople? Because the good ones are rarely out of work.
I would say that good people across the board are rarely out of work. I would say they're never out of work. We don't hire anyone who is unemployed. I'm sorry, that's probably illegal, and I'm going to get sued for saying it, but if you don't have a job, then there's a reason for it. We're trying to hire the best of the best, the top 1%, not the bottom 1%. So if anyone, a technical person, an engineer, a salesperson, if they're not employed, that's a huge red flag, number one. And number two, salespeople are one of the more challenging roles to hire and manage. And part of what we do is look for people that fit a certain profile, do some testing to make sure that they're qualified and that their personality type is going to allow them to thrive in that role. And then it's just a matter of going through the process. If they're an inside salesperson, you make them actually pick up the phone during the interview and make some cold calls. If they're an outside person, you have them take you through a pitch and you look at what their approach is to walk you through the value proposition for something. It doesn't even have to be managed services, but you have to make sure that they can walk you through that value prop. And those different things together have allowed us to get about a 50% hit rate. It's still not 100%, but at least half the time on salespeople, we're making good hires. On technical people, it's more like 90%. 90% of the time, we're making great hires.
Okay. He's got a sort of an appendix to that. He says, where do you actually find them? Do you go through recruiters or job boards, or what's your kind of your strategy for recruitment?
Same thing. LinkedIn Recruiter. I think we pay about $1,700 or two grand a month for it. One of the best investments I've ever made. I can go to and through the back end of this tool called LinkedIn Recruiter, you're able to search LinkedIn, actually search their database, customize your searches for whatever terms that you want. Salespeople with XYZ experience. I can actually do a search for salespeople that have worked for one MSP for more than 5 years, and that's going to tell me that they're probably doing a pretty good job. And based on where I am in my geography, I can actually recruit people from out of town who would love to move to California, who would love to move to San Diego, or would love to move to LA. So that LinkedIn Recruiter tool is so valuable, and it has paid for itself probably 100 times over by A, not giving more money like that to recruiters who I can't stand working with, and number two, by not making bad hires that are just as expensive as paying a recruiter to make a good hire.
Okay. All right. I'm very conscious of time here, but we've time for just a couple of more questions. And one here is, Eric, what is the hardest part about partnering with vendors that deliver their services via SaaS or cloud offerings?
Well, by partnering with another vendor who's delivering cloud offerings, you're going to become accountable for any mistake that they make. And if they don't have the same level of commitment and the same or higher level of operational maturity than your company, you're going to run into some big problems and have to answer for their mistakes. And unfortunately, I've seen a lot of MSPs lose clients and get fired before for mistakes that a cloud vendor made. And that's one of many reasons why we just decided to do it ourselves and build out and mature our own private cloud, which now has over $150,000 a month in recurring revenue.
Nice. Okay. So Eric, just this is a question from me, because I was at a conference recently, and it was mentioned at the conference that there is a move from cloud back to on-prem. Now, I wonder if you have seen any evidence of that, or do you think that is something that's actually happening?
I think it goes back to strategy. I mean, when we do strategic planning with our clients, we never lead with cloud or lead with on-prem. We try to understand the different business requirements, the users' requirements, the functional requirements, performance requirements, security requirements, and figure out what the best strategy is going to be. And for some of our clients, they're all cloud. For some, they're all on-prem. And for some, it's a hybrid. And I think that's going to continue for the foreseeable future, at least the next 5 years. It always is a strategy discussion. And in some cases, A, B, or C make the most sense, but it's never only A, it's never only B, and it's never only C.
Okay. Okay. So this is going to be the last question, I guess, but it is okay. So Eric, when you were scaling your business, did you focus on a particular vertical niche, or did you go wide?
Well, we definitely went wide, and after hiring our business coach, he analyzed our client base and said, "Oh my God, 65% of your clients are in healthcare. You guys are vertically focused on healthcare." And we said, "Wow."
Nice.
We're focused on healthcare.
Okay.
But so we still maintain that healthcare, biotech, and life science focus. We now have pods we've got vCIOs, VITEMs, and help desk resources that only work in those verticals now and specialize in them, so they understand all the regulatory requirements. They understand some of the complexities of working with publicly traded companies, and that's allowed us to maintain a high level of subject matter expertise without having to say we only work with healthcare. But it's definitely a vertical focus for us.
Right. And do you think that's a good strategy for people, or do you think it may not work for everybody. What's your view?
I think it's a great strategy, and you just have to make sure that if you're going to only focus on one vertical, your marketing and your positioning statement is tight enough to where it speaks to that vertical, and you're going to have a strategic advantage over any general competitor. And I think for a lot of MSPs who don't have that level of maturity with their positioning statement or their product offering, it's just so much easier to take on general business. It's easier to grow and then decide that you want to vertically focus. And I've decided that we're gonna build muscles in different verticals and have teams that vertically focus. And that's been a good strategy for us.
Brilliant. Okay. Eric, I think that we could stay on the line for another hour with some of the questions that are coming in, and obviously, you're hugely knowledgeable, and I hope that we will get you back again for another webinar in the not too distant future. But I'm just conscious of time, and so I'm going to finish up. I think there's still a few more questions that maybe we could take offline and get answers out to people with Eric. But just to kind of move ahead, and I don't know if Scott is back with us.
I am. I'm still here. Still here, Janet.
Okay. So I suppose the point, this webinar has been sort of co-organised by us, Storagecraft, and Inbay. So we just want to take a couple of minutes out just to tell you very quickly about what we both do, because I think we're conscious that we've got people on the line who are Storagecraft customers and who know our products, and there's also people on the line who know Inbay and their products, but maybe you don't know us both. So if we could just so I'm going to hand over to you, Scott.
Okay. Great. Thanks, Janet.
In a day when the technology has not been very kind to us.
we haven't, and I guess first of all, if I may just say, Eric, thank you very, very much for taking the time out of your busy day to join us for this second episode. And apologies for my internet and BT issues that I've had, but the feedback that I've already had in my inbox and certainly from the questions that have been raised has been fantastic, and both Janet and I and Storagecraft and Inbay, thank you very much for your time.
Absolutely. I think that you could probably hold masterclasses on being an MSP, Eric, because obviously
absolutely
we're getting an awful lot of very positive feedback here in the chat box. So thank you.
Fantastic. And Eric, we'll go through some of those questions at a later date. Thank you for that. So I guess I'm just going to go over very briefly who Inbay are for those MSPs and companies that are on the line just listening to our webinar today. Inbay is an organisation that was founded in 2002. We offer NOC service desk and project services 24 hours a day, 7 days a week to MSPs out there globally. We have a global base of partners utilising our services. We were formerly an MSP ourselves, so we use the term, we know where the bodies are lying, and we know what MSPs expect. We know some of the issues that MSP have with resource allocation and offering services after hours and so forth. And Eric has absolutely titled Inbay the MSP for MSPs, which we thank you for doing that, by the way. We have our technical delivery centre based in Colombo in Sri Lanka. We've had that there since 2007. We actually set up that delivery centre in 2007 as an MSP, but we had a lot of MSPs coming to us saying, could we white label your services? And then in 2013, we took the decision to switch our focus to sell our MSP and focus on offering NOC service desk and project services to the channel. We're based in London. Our headquarters is based in London. Myself, the sales team and so forth, based in London. We have a sales office in Australia, and we're branching out into the US in 2017. Last year, we just had a massive global growth, and we're expecting to see that and that again in 2017 as more and more MSPs come online and realise the potential of outsourcing these type of services to a company like Inbay. As I said, we offer NOC service desk and project services to MSPs on an international basis. that's just the high-level pitch. If you have any questions, or you've got any questions that you'd like me to ask Eric from today's webinar, or you want to know more about Inbay and the services we provide, there are my contact details there. I promise I will get those emails through, and if you call me on that number, I shouldn't have any issues with BT. So on that note, Janet, I'd love to hand over to you, give us an overview of StorageCraft, and obviously introduce the webinar for next week.
All right. Okay. So thanks very much. Thanks, Scott. So we're StorageCraft, and our area of expertise is in disaster recovery software, which MSPs sell as part of business continuity solution, and it very much ties in with what Eric has been saying about security is a huge component of the future, and DR is obviously an important part of that. So we're founded in 2003 in Salt Lake City. The company has grown significantly in our 13-year history. We're 100% channel. We now have 11,000 partners worldwide, and over 1 million devices are being protected with our software. This is part of our marketing our marketing positioning, that we are the most comprehensive and reliable disaster recovery solution available. And, we offer you sort of backups for your virtual, physical, on-site, off-site. You can back up to cloud, you can back up on-prem. And what's not seen in that picture there is that, we've recently introduced a range of products to back up your SaaS solutions like your Office 365. So that's the kind of the whistle-stop view of disaster recovery from StorageCraft. And again, hopefully we can reach out to some of you after this webinar and tell you a bit more about us. Okay. But next week, excitingly, we're back in the UK, and we're being joined by Darren Strong from Concise Technologies. And Concise, again, are a hugely successful MSP firm, grown up from very humble origins in the founder's garage to now they turn over in excess of, I think it's nearly £5-6 million. So Darren is hugely informative, and very much like Eric and Chris last week, he's a guy who's very happy to share his insights. So I hope we'll have you all back here again next week. Looking forward to you. And I suppose just again, it remains to be said to thank Eric for his time today, and thank all of you for joining us. So that's it from me, and we shall see you next week. Okay, thank you.